It's now the next day, and do you want to know how stupid I am? Look what came in the mail! 6 pages, and I already know this is going to be a DNF. Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a reading vlog for the magical readathon, which I've been looking forward to for like a year and a half. So I've got a bunch of different reading prompts which I talked about in my to be read video, which I will link for some context. So the one I want to start with is Lord Olympus, because the prompt I think was alchemy and that was read a romance, and this is a Hades and Persephone kind of retelling, I believe, obviously in graphic novel format, and I'm really excited to give this a try. I did try it on Webtoon before it was actually a published collection, so I enjoyed it then, but I think I like the more tactile approach to reading it. So I put this on my TBR because I know that it's a graphic novel and I'm probably going to read it pretty quickly, because with Easter during this readathon and working full time, I think I'm going to be quite busy, but hopefully I can get through this and a few other things. I'm also still currently reading The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third Mistborn book and I'm really loving my reread, but because this is so big and I want the momentum to carry, I've not been in the mood for this so much. So I think I might put it down temporarily and then prioritize my readathon picks, and after I finish those, I'll go back to this one. Or I'll pick and choose between both of them. I'm not really sure what I'm in the mood for yet. And then I'm still currently listening to an audiobook as well. I've got 2 or 3 hours left and it's Red Rising. This is also a reread for me. I was trying to finish them at the end of March, but that didn't quite happen because I just got too busy. So naturally they're still on my carryover April TBR. I'll do my best to vlog as often as I can. Most often it's going to be a reading update, maybe a little bit of b-roll, and I don't know if it's going to do massive jumps during the month or if this is going to be 2 vlogs. We'll just see how this readathon goes, because I honestly have no idea. Also, look what came in the mail! This was on my TBR video, but it hadn't arrived in time, and now can confirm it has arrived. It is gorgeous and I can't wait to revisit my nostalgia for this series, but also have new content for this series as well, because this takes place after the Avatar: The Last Airbender show ended. What a mouthful. What an exciting time. I'm going to dive into Lord Olympus, and then after that maybe this, but I'm not sure what order my reading prompts are, and I'd like to go in that order if I can. So apparently I decided to start this readathon with a success, because I just finished Lord Olympus. It's the same day, just a couple of hours later. And I actually really love this. I was expecting to give it about a 4 stars and it was in that ballpark of really enjoyed it and wanted to continue. And that is true, but it actually surprised me. I laughed out loud quite often. There are characters in here that I love and that I'm interested in. There are also characters that I hate vehemently. So if it's stirring that much emotion in me, and I'm really attaching to the art style as well and the layout of the panels and everything and the colour, I think it's all beautiful. I think I'm going to give this a 5 stars, which is a really strong way to start a readathon. So I don't know if this was necessarily the right thing to pick first, because now I'm going to want everything else to be 5 stars, and I don't necessarily know if that's gonna happen. I did have something else on the read a romance prompt, and that was Heartstopper, which I've already read. So technically those books could be 5 stars because they would be rereads and I love them, but I want to read something that I haven't read before, and I think I'm going to go with Brandon Sanderson. So I have 2 of his novellas on this TBR. Both of them would count, so I don't necessarily have to finish 2, but I would really like to at least finish the Cosmere book, and that is Sixth of Dusk. The reading prompt is Spells and Incantations, which is short stories or essays, and given that this is a novella, I'm counting it as a short story because there is no way that I am going to be reading non-fiction with my brain that does not compute non-fiction. So I think Sixth of Dusk is the way it's going to go, and I don't know what in-universe Brandon Sanderson book this is connected to, because it's part of his Cosmere, whereas Defending Elysium, the other book that I've got on here by him, that novella is related to Skyward and it predates the Skyward book. In Cosmere, out of Cosmere, I don't know. And I said that I started strong with Lord of Olympus, and I'm worried about what I'm continuing with, because Brandon Sanderson's older work, it just really is as you'd expect. It's not as developed as his latest stuff, which worries me because I go back into his old stuff expecting what he's like as a new writer. So I don't think I'm gonna love these novellas, not nearly as much as Lord Olympus. I think I'm just being a bit jaded, but I also know that this is from experience of reading his older stuff. So maybe I'll give the Sixth of Dusk novella a 3 stars, and that would be a good rating. I'm not sure. Maybe instead of reading for the moment, I might just watch a movie and then I'll read again later tonight. It's now the next day, and do you want to know how stupid I am? Because I started Sixth of Dusk and I was like, this seems familiar. And it turns out it's one of the books in the Arcanum Unbounded collection, which I've read. So I have to take Sixth of Dusk off this reading list, but instead I've just put in Defending Elysium, and I started that last night, but it was after 11 p.m. So naturally I just went to bed and I didn't update the vlog. I have 16% into that book now, and I've got about 140 or so pages to go. So it's a really short one. What I'm really aiming to do is finish that one today and maybe play some Animal Crossing on the Switch and listen to the rest of Red Rising. I think that's the best I could hope for, and I usually am quite busy during a weekend, but I just seem to have gotten lucky with this one because it seems a lot quieter than usual, and I've got a lot more time for just me by myself. So that really helps when it comes to reading. I think this readathon is going to be very top heavy when it comes to when I finish a lot of the stuff on my TBR. I think I'm going to finish a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning of the readathon and then not so much during the end, but maybe I can end up wrapping it up early. Who knows? Hi, now it's Monday. Usually I would be at work on Monday, but we had a whole PCR test, COVID debacle, and so I took today off just in case. We've all tested negative, so all good there, and that means that I've got the rest of today off. So I'm going to continue reading today. I'm almost at the end of Defending Elysium, and while I do see different parts of it that have merit and are interesting to world building, the story is just boring to me. I'm not really interested. There are a few different characters. There's a murder mystery, there's some kind of big political scandal or something to be uncovered. There are cytonic abilities being used, which you see actively in the Skyward series. So it's interesting enough, and it's about civilization hundreds of years before Skyward was actually a thing. So it is interesting, but I'm just really not very invested in it, and I think it's going to get about a 2.5 to 3 stars. It's not doing great, and I just want to finish it for the sake of this readathon. I am glad that I'm going to be ultimately finishing something that Brandon Sanderson has written, so I could have read more of his backlog, so that's a good thing overall. And then I'm also currently reading the Book of Eli. I have read a grand total of 6 pages, and I already know this is going to be a DNF, which is not how I saw this book going. This appears to be a book that is told as the narrator's voice, narrating directly to the reader, and it's a very, very niche style, and I'm only a fan of it in very certain scenarios, and this one's not working for me. One of the things that this character said was, I don't know what my father's name was, and I don't think my mother knowed it either, or if she did, she never told me. So it's in a character's voice that doesn't really have a very good grasp of English. I think maybe because he's a kid and he's still working things out, I'm not sure, but it's just frustrating to read from. And even though he's talked about the eaters and being et or being not et, and that implies zombies, I think it's an acquired taste, pardon the pun. I'm not really a fan of this, so I'm putting it down. And this is for the prompt that was book set in the future, and so I naturally need to sub something else in if I'm not finishing this, because if I don't read all of the books on this TBR, then I don't pass my magical exams, and so I can't go into the second half of the year's readathon. So I need to finish something else for that prompt. And because I just finished and really loved Red Rising and I gave it a 4.5 stars, I was like, I really want to continue that series, and now I'm going to be self-indulgent and continue, because technically it is a book set in our future because it's set on Mars, and everyone looks very different because there's different color categories for everything, like the blues, the golds, the greens, the reds, and everyone has a particular role in society, and they've been genetically altered in order to do those things. So the golds tower to like 7 feet tall, whereas the reds might be 5 feet tall or something like that. So they've got different disparities between them and different functions in society, and I really loved Red Rising, although there were a few things about it, especially at the ending, and maybe a few little terms during the book that kind of sat a little bit poorly developed for me, like comparing someone to throwing like a girl and that being like a weakness. So it had those old hat kind of descriptors, and the ending, rather than being climactic like a lot of the scenes during the book, it felt more political and maybe not something necessarily that the main character would do, but it was specific maneuvering in order to set up for the second book. And now I've read the whole series and I'm going back and rereading, I can go, oh okay, I can see what the author was doing there, but I'm still not a fan. So I'm gonna go into the next book, Golden Sun, and I remember giving that a 5 stars and adoring it, and I gave this the same rating as I initially did when I read it first. So I'm hoping that I also give Golden Sun and then Morning Star a 5 stars as well. But it will satisfy that reading prompt, so that's a big old tick. And then as far as my reading is concerned, I've just got to finish off Defending Elysium, which is probably like 20 pages or less because I'm over 90 and no, I can't count. I'm over 90 pages and it's got about 144. So I'm going to finish it in an afternoon. And then I've got Night's Shadow to read as well, which is the second Greatcoats book. And this satisfies the read a book with shadow in the title prompt. So I'm going to try and get through this, and I was initially planning to do it on audiobook, but given now that I want to listen to Golden Sun, I might have to do a bit of juggling this month. I will figure something out going forward, but at the moment, I don't know. So I'll tell you later. And I've also got The Promise to read as well. I'm really excited about this one. I'm thinking it's going to be one of the more favourable reads this month rather than a secret DNF like the Book of Coley. So I'm disappointed that this was an apocalyptic book that I didn't love. So Defending Elysium, The Promise, and then Night's Shadow, and also Golden Sun. That's my ongoing TBR. I should also probably confirm that Lore Olympus was indeed a Hades and Persephone retelling, but it's centering the gods in present day. So they've got like mobile phones and stuff, and they all catch up and go to parties and have relationships with each other in various forms. I love how there were such cute moments at the beginning between Hades and Persephone that were kind of clueless but adorable, and it struck me how dark this was at times as well, given how it had such lightheartedness in it. So it had a cool balance, and I'm eager to see when the next volume might actually come out, because I think this released about a year ago or maybe more, so we might be due for another one soon, which I'm quite excited for. Hello, it is now Thursday the 7th of April, and I think I'm coming in to wrap up this readathon already, which is a huge surprise. So I recently finished The Promise, which is the bind-up of graphic novels in the Avatar world that follow on from the show. So they are definite continuations, and I don't want to get into the different storylines or anything, obviously because of spoilers, but the themes in here really revolved around Buddhism, about responsibility to your friends, and about colonialism. I like all of the themes that were present in here, and there were a few mysteries that were left kind of like cliffhangers at the end of the TV show that were partly picked up in here, but I think get ultimately continued in the next bind up, which I'm obviously going to go and buy because I loved this. I really enjoyed too that we got the narration from the artist and the writer for this as well, so we got that on the outside of the graphic novel panels. I like to show you them, but I also don't want to spoil people by accident, so on the outsides we got little arrows and we got notations about the different episodes and different themes and why they've gone a certain way with different types of storytelling. So because of that, it felt like a really flush and full story, and I often laughed out loud at this at different times as well because they got the tone of the show really spot on. So I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It didn't quite have the emotional edge that watching the show did, but it's got most of it there, so it's almost a complete picture. I think potentially in the next volume I'll be more emotional, but I really enjoyed these, and this is a very strong way to finish a readathon. Hello, I'm just quickly cutting in here to say that I didn't talk about Defending Elysium, and I ended up giving that about a 2.5 stars. It was okay, but I felt overall disconnected from the story, and it obviously wasn't one of my favourite Sanderson books. I kind of predicted this from the beginning of this vlog, that his older stuff is very much structured rather than immersive when it comes to character, and I often get into a story if I'm invested in character. So it was interesting in terms of world building in Skyward, but I wasn't invested in any of the characters, so none of the twists really got me going. So 2.5 stars, but I'm glad I finished it and I've read something else in his catalogue. Now back to me talking properly in the reading vlog. So now I finished all of the readathon prompts when it comes to reading books on my TBR that I hadn't read yet, but I'm also still currently reading Golden Sun by Pierce Brown, and that's the second book in the Red Rising saga. And then I'm also currently reading Night's Shadow by Sebastian de Castell. I don't know why I had a blank when it came to his name just then. He's one of my favourite authors. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm reading this as well, and this is like a Three Musketeers vibe where there are potential gods and politics going on and magic as well, and the main characters don't have any magic to their name. They've just got their dueling swords and their wits, and that's what makes a very interesting story to me. Someone like an underdog who has to pull through and take his friends with him and survive different scenarios, which I always find very interesting and very surprising. And this is the same. I'm really enjoying this. The first way through I gave this a 5 stars, and I think that's going to be pretty similar on the second way. But when I'm reading this, I'm like, I miss the audiobook because I loved the audiobook. There is so much tone and inflection in this book, but when I'm listening to it, the audiobook narrator just performed it to that next level. So while I'm loving this, I'm tempted to just blaze through Golden Sun, which I also left the narration for on audio. And once I'm finished with that one, then I can re-listen to this one, because they're both done immaculately on audiobook. And I feel like by reading this physically, I'm missing out on what I experienced previously. But given that I'm reading 2 books that I've already read, and that's the end of the readathon, and one of them's an audiobook and they take me a little bit longer to read than usual, I was like, why am I continuing this reading vlog? Because I pretty much already know what my thoughts on these are probably going to be. And so I'll probably just talk about them in a wrap up at the end of the month, and I know what my ratings are probably going to be for them, so it didn't really make sense to continue them in the reading vlog, if that makes sense, because it's not like a blank canvas and I'm picking up a book and it's completely new to me. They're not. So I think I might end the readathon vlog here, which is really surprising. I've got about 3 weeks of the month left to read things that are also on my April TBR. One of the books on my April TBR is Baptism of Fire, which is the next continuation in the Witcher series that I'm currently trying to get through. I think it's book 5, and then book 6 or 7 is the last in the series. And while these are quite small in length, they are translated, so when I read them it takes me a little bit longer to get through. So I'm hoping that I also finish this month, but it's not necessarily my next read. My next read that I'm also in the middle of but paused for this readathon is Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, which is the next Mistborn book. I'm trying to get through the, I think, 500 or 600 pages I've got left, and then if I finish this one I want to continue on with Alloy of Law, which is the first book in the Era 2 set of Mistborn. So this is a 300 years later story in the same world, and this is where the world originated. So it's going to be awesome to continue and see the jump in Sanderson's writing ability, but these ultimately are what I want to keep continuing on with after the readathon, and hopefully I can finish Night's Shadow and also Golden Sun in a pretty good time this month as well. Maybe I can squeeze Morning Star on as an extra audiobook if I finish this as well, but I think now I'm just getting a little bit too ambitious. So thank you so much for watching this reading vlog. Come and let me know if you participated in the magical readathon as well, and if you did, how many books were on your TBR, because I am surprised that I got through as many as I did, even though obviously there were graphic novels and stuff, which I think really helped. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Come chat to me down below in the comments, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.